Torah or Parshat Noach, page 10, middle of the first column. Okay, now the Rabbi is explaining that dafka through the choshech of parnasses, worries and problems, and then a person has his baininess to realize that all comes from the mazel, which comes from this, which comes from that, which comes from that, which is basically worthless. And yet, through Torah mitzvahs, you reach the level b'chol me'idecha. Like he said, the last thing we're learning, the Malach HaMavet, Hashem said, "Vayar Elokim es kol asher osvin toiv." Toiv is the Malach HaChayim, the Malach of life. Ma'od is the Malach HaMavet. How could it be? How could Malach HaMavet be toiv ma'od? Because the only way you can reach the infinite is by transforming chayshich to or. And like we explained yesterday, what it says, that chayshich, in order to transform two identified things one to the next, you have to tap into a level which is above both together. And therefore you can change from good to bad and bad to good and so on. So he says, so he says, why is this? Smack in the middle of the page, middle of the page of the first column. Because in reality, the Nefesh Habamis is a higher source than the Nefesh Halikis. Believe it or not. Why? Commissioner calls and it says, these are the kings which ruled. Before it ruled the Jewish king, which is the Nefesh Halikis. In other words, Teil is higher than Tikkun. Nefesh Habamis comes in the world of Teil. Nefesh Halikis comes to the world of Tikkun. Don't worry, in the higher, Nefesh Halikis is higher. Through the Shviras HaKelim, Noflu Lamata Mata Mamish. It fell down all the way. Like it says, Vayimlech Vayamos, Avo B'Shosham. Just like we learned, how is, in another Maimon, the Alter Rebbe says, how is it possible that we sustain ourselves from food, which is lower than us? So the answer is because it comes from a higher level. Right? It comes from Tehu. Or like we learned, when Yaakov sent gifts to Esav, it was called Mincha, Korban, nevertheless he sent Treifa animals. Why? Because now in our Avodah we cannot elevate Treifa animals. Therefore you can only eat and bring as a Korban kosher animals. But Yaakov wanted to elevate Esav in the source of Tehu. Remember we learned that in Vayishtachim Teirah. He wanted to elevate Esav in the source of Teil, so he did that. Therefore, even when the sparks of Teil fell down here, it still has power over the Nefesh Halikis, which is the level of Isnasis. From the higher level of Malchus, another interesting point he says, we get nourishment from the animals. The animals don't get nourishment from us. They don't eat us. We eat them. Foods, they don't need a person to sustain them. They don't, why? It doesn't make sense. We need them and they don't need us. Why? Because in the source of the sources are much greater. Like we know, why was Esav born first? Why was Esav the Bechor? Because he came from the world of Tehu, and Yaakov came from the world of Tikkun, and Tehu comes before Tikkun, not only before Zman, because there's no time then. It's a higher level. Therefore, by the Nefesh Halikis coming into the Nefesh Habamis, to occupy themselves with the problems and thoughts of Parnasa in physical things, which are called Mayim Rabim. Only through that, which is Bligvul, which is even higher than it was before the Neshama came down. Before the Neshama came down, it was in the world of Tikkun. Now it comes back up after Torah mitzvahs, which is a much greater level. greater than it was before it came into the body, where it was only in Gan Eden, where Nen is Miziv Ashchina. Okay? So bottom line, he's saying, Mei Noach, in the negative way, meaning the Tirdas HaParnasa, but only through Tirdas HaParnasa, only through the worries and all the problems, can you come to a level, a high Mei Noach, which is the level of Menucha, a higher level. Davka, by breaking, transforming darkness, which is which is the advantage of a light when it comes from darkness, because it comes from a higher level than the Nefesh Kiss does. But down here, like it's ever Yimlech Vayamas, then it becomes Nasut Chis Mason. This explains another thing. In creation, if you look at last week's Parshat, there was darkness. Then Hashem said, Yehi Or. So what came first? Chayshech came before Or. Now there was no time then. Oh, there was really, but in essence, it's not only that darkness came before light. Darkness means is higher than light. Why? Because it comes from a higher level, and therefore when it falls down really far into a form of darkness. Therefore, when you take that darkness, which comes from a higher level, but down here it's dark, and you make it into light, you are creating a greater light than light is by itself. Because revealing the world of Torah.
We will learn that when they tell us light, it's really not this light.
No.
It's the darkness that we're talking about, is not really this darkness also.
It's evil. Evil transformed to good. In other words, a person takes his negative traits and uses them for positive things. That's the transformation of bad to good.
Therefore, Moshe was created. Moshe is not lack of order. Moshe was created.
Yes and no. There's two levels of chayshech. There's a level of chayshech, that's the absence of light. Then you have, as we said, you guys, if you daven today, and you'll listen to Yetzer u'beirei cheshech, which is the pasuk. Beirei cheshech means Hashem created darkness. Yet, so, the Rebbe in Tovshin Ches, my Mormon Fried Rebbe, I believe it is, in Ha'ara, the Rebbe explains that there's two levels, because the Rebbe brings on the machlekes, an argument in Poskim, if darkness is something or it's only the absence of light. And the Rebbe says you could say really they're not arguing. It depends what level of darkness you're talking about. There's a level of darkness which is the absence of light. And then the Rebbe says you have like a Mitzrayim. The plague of darkness wasn't only the absence of light. It was tangible darkness. On that level it says Beirei Cheshech. Hashem created darkness.
That Cheshech is higher than all.
Correct. Yes, sir.
What level was the micro darkness?
A higher form of cheshech. It was tangible cheshech. Yeah. That's why, by the way, by Or you touch the shoyad, and by cheshech you touch the shorosh, because the shorosh is higher than shoyad, because cheshech is higher than Or. In the source. We're talking the level of Yetzer Or Ubeirei Cheshech. In that level, Cheshech is higher than Or.
Not potential. It is.
In that level, it is higher. But the problem is, it came all the way down.
What is the problem?
You have a passage that says, Chachamim heima lahara. They're Chachamim in doing evil. Many of these evil, rotten people are brilliant. But instead of using their brilliance in a positive way, they use it in a negative way, killing, whatever. So, but you have to take that level, and so Hashem made you come down, where the cheshach is in Shviras HaKelim, the sparks of Tehu, and the Avodah is to elevate the sparks of cheshach to Or. And that's B'chol Meidacha. That's where the neshama comes down and goes up higher than it was before. Okay, so he said, V'zeh Shemai Marazal. This is what the Mishnah says. Yofet Shachas B'Shuv Ma'asim Tehu Mazeh Mikol Chelim Haba. One turning, 1 second of tshuva Ma'asim Tehu in this world is better than the whole Olam Haba. Therefore, the great waters are called Mei Noach. Why? It becomes the word Noach, which is Tevas Hatfila. Like the Baal Shem Tov said, Boy ala Teva. Come into the Teva. Spiritual Teva means word. Teva is word in Hebrew. What words? Words of Torah and words of Tefillah. So how does a person get saved from the negative Mei Noach, from the flood waters? So what did Hashem tell Noach? Be'el Teva. The Teva will protect you. What does the Baal Shem Tov say Teva means? The words of Torah and Tefillah. And that's what it says. That the water was 15 amas higher than the top of the mountains, which is Tagbedes, Nefesh Abamis Alucha Nefesh Sholakis, which is the level of the Nefesh Abamis over the Nefesh Sholakis. Beisa Kaparnos Vinyonim Gashmim, Ach Ayedei Zed Nasa Achakach Yisner, then you can make a greater level of order. Therefore, it says in the pasuk, the teva went over the water, through the water of Mei Noach, the teva became elevated. Right, the teva floated. That means the water picked up the teva. That means dafka the mayim rabim, the negative mayim rabim, elevates the words of Torah and Tefillah that we do to a higher level than it is by itself. Misalas Tevis Tefillah va'ela l'mayla mayla kanal v'zehu tois abali asokin. This is the mistake of business people. Shebedaitum shein yuchelim nispal kol kach k'mei yesh v'yoel. They think that they have no time to daven like yeshiva boys do. Why? Ki adarab. Nepuch is just the opposite. They're able to accomplish more through their davening. What does it say that that he called in the Rebbe called in the Chassid Elia Libler, whatever his name was, and he said, "I'm jealous of you." Why? Because in the middle of business, you say a Dvar Torah to somebody, you say a Kapitel Tilim, it's a greater level than other people could do.
But then why is all accumulative and Poshek not?
Why is it? Because that's the way the Eibishter made it, that it shouldn't be permanent. Says, why did Chetei Tzadas cause Adam Rishon to die? It wasn't only a punishment. Chassidus explains that the reason why Adam Rishon died, because now that he did the Chetei Tzadas, Hashem didn't want permanency of evil. So Adam Rishon died because of the Chetei Tzadas, so that Chassidus explained that he shouldn't have a permanent consistency and permanency of evil. He died because, like it says in the Gesed, he had enough kayach to live 930 more years.
That's why people die after 120 years.
The reason people die is for death to finish. But good doesn't end.
That also stops the good.
No, it doesn't. Because good, it keeps going, it's cumulative. The good we do here is, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, the good you do is eternal, because we're connecting to Hashem higher than time and place, that is continuous. Evil, which is not connected to Hashem, so it's maves, so it's not nitzchi, so therefore evil is not accumulative. it ends.
So we learn that what we study and what the Torah is blueprint of the Lord.
Yeah.
And we are reading this and compare with what's happening today, what is book is telling us, don't go fight. Just go inside the Torah, which is the Tehillim and Torah study. And if you don't go war, they're going to kill us.
Too late. But it depends what you're fighting for and what you're ignoring. We learned many times, the Rabbi explains in a Sikha, when Mitzrayim was coming behind the Jews in Parshat B'Shalach, what did Hashem say? Al titzek adaber b'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael. Hashem yilochem lachem. The Jews wanted, one group said, let's go fight. Hashem said, Hashem yilochem lachem. What are you going fighting for? I, by Hashem, by Amalek, in the same parsha, at the end of B'Shalach, it says, say hilochem b'Amalek. Go fight Amalek. By Mitzrayim, it says, Hashem yilochem lachem. And here it says, Hashem, say hilochem b'Amalek. So the Rebbe explains, it depends what type of war we're talking about. If you're talking about the past, forget it. So as somebody blocking you, Amalek is blocking you from going to Matan Torah, then you need to fight. So it depends when. Sometimes you don't fight, sometimes you do fight. That's why you need Moshe Rabbeinu to tell us.